Another surface command is the surface texture. So under surfaces, you have surface texture. Now to do this, we have to set up a few things. So the first thing we need to set up is a material. But we can add a surface texture to our surface in an enclosed area, basically. So the first thing that we want to do is set up some material. So before I even give it a name and put it on a layer and put the texture in, I'm going to go to my Material Site Improvement Manager, which I can also get to from up here. But I'm going to go right from here and I'm going to create a new material, because right now on our project we don't have any. If you had set up a material with a template in your project template, then you would have those to quickly assign, and you wouldn't have to go through this part of the process. But in this case, I just want to show you the steps required to get to this area, or to get to this level. So under materials, we can define a couple different types. There's an earthen type, where it kind of controls what your mass earthworks is, and dealing with shrinkage and haulage and how it's measured. And then there's some earthen select, which is your fill material that's brought in. But you can also create other material classes and categories. So I'm going to create a new material category, and I'm just going to call this for BMP materials. All right, so maybe this is my pond that I'm working in, and I'm going to have just specific materials for this. So I'm going to go into the new materials, and again, the idea with this is that you're using it for takeoff, but you can also use it for shading and rendering. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to call it water, and with the water I'm going to choose that I want maybe volume or area. I could use area, and I could tell it that I want to measure by square yard, but I'm just going to pick volume for now. Don't worry about the optional for this case. And then down here we want to put a color in, but this is where the texture comes in. So the texture basically is a swatch that you can just go to Google and Google for a JPEG. So here I have some water. So if I just went to Google and searched for images and typed in water, you'll see that I can get these different swatches. I can get retaining walls and riprap and grass areas and brown turf and sandy soils. And you just have this little pattern. So I'm going to click this water pattern. I'm going to click open. And that's going to be my pattern. Now you can kind of adjust the scale if you want. And you'll see that as we get into this. But I'm going to leave it the way it is. And I'm going to create another one. And we're going to call this grass. And again, I'll just change the color. We'll make it medium green. But I'm going to go ahead and just give it this grass area here. All right. So I'm just going to do a couple. So now that I've got those two textures, I can come in here and I can click on water. Now I want to come in and I want to put this on a layer. So I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm just going to call it textures, or you could call it site improvements as well. I don't really care about the color or anything like that. And then the name, I'm going to call it, we're going to call it water. This is the water texture, surface texture. So the location is going to be in the bottom here. Now if I click here, all right, you may or may not see anything. You'll notice that now everything's changed and it's done it across the entire site. The reason for that is basically because this break line right here that is used in that surface, okay, it's an edge. If we look at the properties, we can see that it's a CAD polyline, okay. So what we want to do is we want to edit that CAD polyline, turn it into a line string. Right. Now that it's a line string, we can close this, because all it did was convert it to a line string. Now I can come down here and it's the surface sharpness. So I want this to be sharp and textured boundary. So when I do that, you'll see that it now keeps that texture within that boundary. And the rest of this surface, if we take a look at the surface properties, you'll see that in our 2D and 3D plan view, the properties were converted or turned over to material. So I could switch it back to elevation, but it automatically switched it over to material for us. So when I do this, you can see that now I got this water pattern that's been, and if I go in, you can see that each little swatch. So if we go back to the Material Site Improvement Manager and we take a look at this water area, and let's say we bump this up to 10 and 10 and close, it'll refresh. You can see that pattern gets a little bit bigger, right? So you can adjust that and mess with that. Now if I come in here and we pick this line here, which is this other boundary line, it doesn't look like it goes all the way around, so let's find one that does. Well, let's pick this one. All right, so we'd have to close that boundary. So let me pick looks like I got a line string here. So that line string there, again, is sharp. We want to make it sharp and textured. And now we can go back to surface texture, and I could call this grass slope or something, and pick that grass material, and then pick within that boundary. So anywhere in here, you probably want to pick, you'll see it leaves a little marker. I'm going to pick right there, and you can see now that's been shaded with that texture. So if we were to turn off the contours and the surface, oops, I added a couple extra that we didn't need. Let's make sure we get rid of those. And you can only have one texture within an area. But that's kind of the process, and that's how you would add surface textures to your surface.